And welcome to this detailed summary of the patch 2.2 notes. This is obviously before the launch of patch 2.2, so I can't show you in game what has changed. I am joined today by Legacy Free Company member Asa. Say hello.
Hello.
So what we're going to quickly do is we're going to go through the notes. I'm not going to read out every word because that would just be ridiculous. But yeah, so we just finished watching the 13th letter from the producer, which was held in Sapporo in Japan. And they went through a lot of new announcements for patch 2.2. And one thing they've done, that exactly after finishing the live letter event, they released the 2.2 patch notes. So yeah. So let's start reading through them. And we'll also, as well, both of us talk about all of the things that were announced during the live letter as well, which might not be contained in the notes. So bear with us. It will be a long video, but it will summarize everything that's coming forward. And big thank you to Yoshida and the team at Square Enix for putting so much effort into this game. It is really appreciated by the community. It really makes for a fun game. And thank God they're adding so much because, to be honest, for us more, let's say, hardcore players, we really do push the limits of the game so far that we were starting to run out of things to do. So thank God they're adding in so much. So anyway, looking at the top of the patch notes, it shows, let's see, the announcement. You have the trailer, which I covered in another video, which you can see. I will have the link to this, to the patch notes in the video description as well. So scrolling down, it says first main bit, it says new main scenario quests have been added. So they will start with Mithrie, and obviously you're going to have finished the 2.1 story mode before you can do the 2.2 one, because it carries on from there. And let's see. Looking through the list, it does seem like there is quite a lot of quests, isn't there? So let's see. So there's mention of Yugiri. So you're going to be you're going to be talking directly to Yugiri to do quests. Yugiri is the girl you saw wearing the purple outfit in the trailer. And then it says some new quests have been added for it says new Chronicles of a New Era quests have been added. That's basically more referring to the how you unlock Binding Coil, the new Binding Coil, and the quests within it. And they always start from Urianga in the Waking Sands. So if you finish Term 5 and finished all of the quests after Term 5, then you can go in and start the quest to do Turn 6. Okay, now scrolling down, they have all the list of the Hildibrand quests which are coming in. It doesn't seem like there's many, it only shows 4, but I'm sure they're going to be long and detailed and funny quests with long and funny cutscenes and so on. So, I mean, just looking at the trailer, you see the guy sort of slammed down with a big explosion, and we're going to be facing off with Gilgamesh as well. So I'm looking forward to that, that's for sure. And one thing they did say during the live letter is that the Gilgamesh fight will be easy. It's designed to just be for story and entertainment, and you will be able to defeat it with 8 players, they said. So that's that part. And it says a whole bunch of new side quests have been added in. Let's see. Yeah, but I mean, these lists of side quests are related to all of the new features coming into the game, because you can see these quests here, an ill-conceived venture, so obviously that's the quest related to your retainer ventures. Now, one thing they said about the retainer ventures during the live letter is that they're going to make it so that the retainers can go out into the world and gather items for you and so on, but they have to be a certain level. So you can't expect your retainer straight away to be going out to farm level 50 items for you. You have to level it up. Now, leveling it up is really, they said, very quick and very easy, but you still have to do it individually. So you can either be a fighter, a caster, or a gatherer class on your retainer. If you decide to change the class of your retainer, you then forfeit the levels you have gained so far, and you have to start and level it again. But they said that's not a problem because they level up really quickly. And something else they said during the live letter is that when you want to send out your retainer to do a venture, you have to pay them with tokens, not with gil. And the way you pick up venture tokens, is you can buy them for Grand Company seals. So 1,000 Grand Company seals will buy you 5 venture tokens, which is something you'll see when we scroll down the patch notes a bit more. And then you have here the free quest for unlocking the new free dungeons, the Lost City of Amdapor, Halati, and Brayflox. So they're going to have to be unlocked like the other dungeons in patch 2.1. And you can see it tells you exactly where to unlock them. So you don't need to like search in game for them. It says them right here. And then they're showing the Kobold and Sahagin Beast Tribe quests have been added into the game, and where to start them. So Outer Lenosia for the Kobolds and Western Lenosia for the Sahagin. And the same as the Amalja and the Sylphs, when you get to the maximum rank, there will be mounts available to buy. And they already showed off what those mounts are. You can see them in the trailer. So the Kobold one is the one with the floating bombs. And the Sahagin one is the... What would you say that mount is? What animal is that?
It's more of like, it's kind of similar to the one for the old quest line for the Beastmen for the Ifrit worshippers. It's very similar. It's kind of like a amphibious lizard thing, I guess is the closest thing I would call for it.
Yeah, I'm not sure 100% with the name of it, but yeah. And then
you fight some of them in Pharos if you have a chance to see them, but I don't quite remember the name.
It's like what they called, but those ones usually fly. The ones you're talking about, the ones that have the same sort of beak, and it's just that one's a land one. So I wonder what the name is, but I guess we'll find out once we get there. And then in the patch notes we have the list of the quests to unlock the different beast tribes, because that's something you have to do. It's not just a case of just go straight in and start doing dailies. You have to unlock them the way you unlock the Amalja and the Sylphs, which I will be recording for my YouTube channel after the launch of patch 2.2. So separately for the Kobolds and the Sahagin. And as you level up through the different ranks, that's what these requests are referring to. And that's why some of them are blanked out with the names, just so that it doesn't spoil it for you what the story of the individual beast tribes is. Each beast tribe has its own story and its own thing. So as you're progressing through the different ranks, it's not just a case of just do dailies. It also there is a story mode to it. You do learn more about them and so on. So... okay, next part.
One thing to notice that you didn't quite touch on is that you get venture tokens for doing Beastman quests in 2.2, both the existing ones and the new ones.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't notice that. Okay, so it says now it says Beast Tribe reward quest rewards have been adjusted as follows. So it said Allagan Tombstone's philosophy will no longer be received. It said an increased number of Allagan Tombstones mythology will be received. Allagan Tombstones of soldiery will now be received. Elemental shards will no longer be received. Ventures will be received. Okay, so obviously this is only referring to the Beast Tribe quest specifically. So at the moment in the game with the Amalja and the Sylphs, some quests give you 15 philosophy and some other quests give you 3 mythology. And what they're basically saying here, that's probably just going to switch. So it'll be up to 15 mythology and 3 Allagan Tombstones of soldiery for a daily. So that's what that's referring to in this part of the patch notes. Okay, so moving on. Guildleves. It says difficulty following Guildleves has been adjusted. Okay, so maybe they were too hard, maybe they were too easy, whatever, but they've been adjusted. And it says new rewards have been added to certain battlecraft and fieldcraft leaves. The frequency with which these rewards appear has been adjusted. So what happens sometimes when you're doing battlecraft or fieldcraft or leaves generally, sometimes you will just get like gil and shards, but other times you will get an item reward. So what this is basically saying is that new rewards have been added, but they don't happen every single time you do the leave. It just appears sometimes. So, but to be honest with you, when I'm doing those sort of leaves and I get those really annoying items, I actually don't like them because I just end up vendoring or giving them all in for seals. I don't have any use for them. I would rather just get more shards, to be honest. But then, anyway, so next part says casting bar no longer appears after surveying targets areas during certain fieldcraft leaves. Okay. Guildleve progress will now appear on screen when engaging enemies during a battlecraft escort leave. Okay. And then it says, to address an issue wherein NPCs become stuck during Battlecraft escort leads, NPCs' movement will be reset 20 seconds after using the beacon emote. Okay, so basically, if they were in any situation where they used to get stuck, and it never happened to me personally, but if they get stuck, every 20 seconds they will like reset themselves just to be sure. Let's see. Now this is an interesting one. Guildhest. It says bonus rewards for first-time completion of Guildhest will now be awarded to classes individually. The first-time completion bonus will be obtainable by players regardless of the Guildhest completion status prior to patch 2.2. So what this is basically saying is that when you're leveling up an alt class, you can then go through all the Guildhests again on every single class individually and still get the first-time bonus, which I think is great. It just adds variety to leveling up, to be honest.
Thing to note is that if you play as a scholar and you clear it as a scholar, then you cannot get the bonus for Arcanist or Summoner because it's technically the same class. So they said that right there.
Yeah, this big red warning. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. I guess it makes sense. I guess they didn't want to make it too... But that's something to note for the future when they start adding in more jobs against the same classes. So we'll see about that. So anyway, it says the difficulty following phase has been lowered as the number of people participant decreases. Okay, fair enough. So they actually lower when less people are there. Which are these fates? I think these fates are the ones related to unlocking Crystal Tower.
No, actually, these are the fates for the Beastmen tribes. I specifically recognize 3 of them. But pretty much what would happen is that you would have a group of people kill it, and then somebody tries to solo it and can't, and gets having to wait until somebody else can help them kill it. It's just a response to the forums. The forums requested that.
Yeah, that's a good change then, because they did say fates do scale, but after they've been defeated. So like you said, so if loads of people did it once, and then someone else tries to solo it later, it's impossible. So then this one is. It's sort of saying like they dynamically become easier as you engage with them.
Yeah, and it's more like the beta, and like the beta would do that as people engaged or disengaged a fate. Like the difficulty would increase based on the level and how many people are attacking it. So it's more like what it was in beta 3 than it was in launch 2.0.
That's cool. And then it says, HP of enemies following phase will increase as the number of participants increases. So behold now Behemoth, and he taketh with his eyes. This is basically the Behemoth and Odin phase. So it's basically saying the more people attack it, the more their max HP goes up. So, which I guess makes sense. Because I think, to be honest, especially on a server like Sahagin, so many people go and attack Behemoth and Odin that they die so quickly that the chances of getting the gold before seemed so hard because there wouldn't be enough time to build up enough threat against them. And then it says, but then they've also countered that by saying it will be easier to obtain gold rating for the following fates, because that was basically another problem with these fates, is the fact that they could, it was really, really hard to get gold. I mean, I've only ever had gold on Odin, I think, twice ever, and on Behemoth just once. So let's see. So it says the wrench in the works has been moved from one place to another. So I'm guessing a wrench in the works is one of the Beast Tribe fates as well.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, because it's for this proto-armor identification key. It's like a rank 2 one, so it's not that important, but they've moved it anyway, so it's just beware of that. Just check your map to see when it spawns.
Now it spawns like right in the middle of a bunch of trash, and so it's a real pain in the butt to pull it. And so you kind of have to fight it on the very edge of the map, and it's very easy if you move just the wrong spot. And so I can see why they would reset that.
Oh yeah, because isn't that the place where there's just loads of Garleans just huddled together, and they can easily link into the fight?
10 trash mobs right there, and if you're trying to solo it, it's pretty much really difficult if you're not a pet class.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, so going through the notes more, it says new dungeons have been added. Lost City of Amdapor. You need to be item level 55 and above, and then this is where you unlock the quest. So. But what they're saying is to actually do that, to unlock the Lost City of Amdapor, you must have finished So the ultimate weapon. I'm assuming that's the. Is that the?
That's the last story quest. Yeah.
Yeah, the last story quest. Okay.
So once you ding 50 and kill Ultima, you can do all these.
Yep. And then Halati Hard. Let's see. Same thing. And then you can unlock this in Mordona. And Brayflox Longstop. Again, unlock it in Mordona. And then it says second Coil of Bahamut, turns 6 to 9. It's obviously something we're very, very much looking forward to in Legacy. So, again, you must have finished. Now, that quest here, Elise's Pledge, you can only do that quest after you've finished turn 5 and return to Urianga. So you go back to Urianga after you finish turn 5, do Elise's Pledge, and then you can unlock this quest called Another Turn in the Coil. So I'm assuming for us, that's probably going to be one of the first places we go, is straight to Urianga in the Waking Sands to do the quest, not Another Turn in the Coil to unlock turn 6. And then...
One thing to take note of here is that quest, that prerequisite quest, Alice's Pledge, I probably mispronounced that, is the quest you get immediately after beating turn 5. So It is a requirement. You have to beat turn 5 to do turn 6 through 9.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then little things down here says a guild reward has been added for Labyrinth of the Ancients. Well, okay. And then now talking about when it says Binding Coil of Bahamut, they're referring only to turns 1 to 5. So it says weekly entrance restriction on all on entering all 5 turns. The Binding Coil of Bahamut has been abolished, so you can go in as much as you like, and you can now might now proceed directly into any of the turns. So you can go into any like turns 1 to 5. And it says players may now enter Binding Coil via the Duty Finder with a full party. It says with the later update, the Echo buff will be applied to all party members upon incapacitation. Moreover, full party will no longer be required to register via Duty Finder. So what's basically saying is that the Echo buff is something they actually spoke about in detail in during the live letter. So what they said is that when you die, or I thought they said it's different for Coil though compared to other things, but they said the Echo buff, the idea of it is that when you go in to, for example, the extreme fights or the A Relic Reborn fights or whatever, and you die, then you get a stacking Echo buff, which will increase your maximum HP by 10%, your DPS by 10%, and your cure potency by 10%. Now, for the A Relic Reborn quest, that can stack up to 5 times, up until 50%. Now, they've added an Echo buff as well for the extremes and Ultima Hard mode, which will increase 5% each time up to a maximum of 25%. And then they said they are adding in the same Echo buff for Binding Coil of Bahamut, but they're doing it differently. So for Binding Coil of Bahamut, just checking my notes very quickly, they basically said that the Echo buff is going to be released on a schedule every 2 weeks. So the 2 weeks after patch 2.2, there will not be an Echo buff in Binding Coil. It will just be the same. And so for people hoping to get straight into Binding Coil and do turn 5, the second 2.2 launches, that won't be the case. You'll still have to do it normally for at least 2 weeks. And then after that, there will be a stacking buff. So for 2 weeks after the launch, there will be a 10% increase. And then 2 weeks after that, 15%, 2 weeks after that, 20%, and 2 weeks after that, 30%. But that 30% is subject to change based on how well people do. And if they need to do it more or less, they will adjust it at the end. But the difference is with the Binding Coil Echo buff is that you will not have to die to have the buff. It will just be there when you zone in to the dungeon. So for anyone who's ever played World of Warcraft and did Icecrown Citadel, it's the same as the buff they added there. They had a bravery buff, I think it was called, or something like that, which was exactly the same thing, that over time you would just be more and more powerful. Again, same thing up until 30% increase in all areas. So they're copying that model, I think, from World of Warcraft. So, but it's a good model to have because it allows these dungeons to be made available to the casual players who just want to see the content at least once in their gaming lifetime, and they're not there to farm it as soon as it comes out like a free company like Legacy might. So yeah, do you have any comments on that?
It's more to allow people to clear it to be able to do the next turns of Bahamut Coil, Because there's a lot of groups that are able to clear turns 1 through 4, but not able to clear turn 5. And it's mostly situated towards getting people through turn 5, because turn 5 is required for turn 6 through 9. And so, and the Echo buff is going to, and there is actually a note in here that they didn't include in the live letter that it applies upon incapacitation just like the primals, but it's going to gradually increase every 2 weeks over the course of the 8 following the patch. So it'll max out at a certain point 8 weeks after the patch. Obviously, that's subject to change depending on how many people can actually clear it. They might put out a nerf for Twintania or something along those lines as well.
That's fair enough. So now one thing that they did mention as well is that in theory, other than this nerf to high voltage, because high voltage is a ability which happens in Binding Call, which if you don't interrupt it, it will do a paralyze spell on everyone in the group. So we just get used to interrupting it whenever it's cast and so on. But other than that nerf, they basically did say that Binding Call is not being nerfed in any other way. They're not reducing the fight. They're not making the dungeon easier. They're just making you, the player, more powerful to counteract its difficulty. That's all. So the dungeon itself will still be the same. Will still have the same dynamics, the same everything. The same strategy will be required. But you will have a lot more damage and a lot more healing and health and so on to allow for more mistakes, let's say. But I can still see players failing miserably on the dive bombs, for example.
The Echo buff does not affect your stats other than HP and the amount the healer's healed for. It only affects your HP and the amount healed for, because it already exists in story quests. And if you fail a story quest over and over and over again, it'll do the same thing. But the other thing I wanted to touch on for Coil is that they're decreasing the amount of reflected damage on the soldiers in turn 4, where you have to have a magic where if a magic DPS like hits the knight or soldier, I can't remember, I always get those two confused, but the one that reflects magic will actually reflect less damage now, and the stone skin's being reduced. They mentioned that specifically in the live letter.
Oh yeah, it says the knight. It says the knight won't be... I think they said completely that the knight will no longer reflect damage at all, so it's not like it'll be reduced, it'll be removed, the reflection. So, okay. I guess it makes sense though, because if you have like a 30% increase in damage and then it gets reflected, then kaboom, you've just killed yourself in one hit, you know? So,
and then another thing to take note of is that you can duty finder Coil 1 through 5, but a full party is required. I don't believe right at launch of 2.2 you're going to just solo queue for Coil and get a pug. You're going to have to get a party finder group and then go that way, just like it is now, but you'll be able to duty finder it. Eventually that will be released, but right now they're requiring the full group, I believe. They said that specifically in the live letter, and it says it in the big red notes on the patch notes also.
Yeah, absolutely. Right here. So it says players may now enter Binding Coil of Bahamut via the duty finder with the full party. So you have to be 8-man to go in. But I'm sure that people will still use, for example, the the party finder to actually gather their groups together, and then they'll just simply use the duty finder to go in.
Exactly, just like doing a farm run for EX primals now or whatnot.
Yeah, so I will look forward to that. I wonder if there will be like turn 5, let's farm your weapons, party finder groups eventually, but we will see.
Yeah, we'll see. But honestly, with Leviathan weapons, that'd be kind of silly to do now.
Yeah.
Other than glamour, the weapons look pretty sick, to be honest.
Absolutely. And then let's see, because I do want the bow actually, the barb bow, just for the sake of vanity more than anything else. But then again, the new bows which are coming in do look amazing. So, but I might be a tank as well, so we'll see. But I mean, because did you see in the live letter the paladin gear where it's got some like glowing sword and shield?
The new turn 9 weapons glow, as do the new Zodiac weapons, but we can touch into that stuff later.
Yep. So anyway, so they're saying Amdapor Keep has been nerfed at least a little bit, apparently. Okay.
Yep, they're removing the gnats from Demon Wall. That's the only major one.
Yeah. So I'm not sure why they're nerfing it, because they already nerfed it. So apparently this was causing issues for people. I think, yeah, like you said, the nats on the big Bs on basically on Demon Wall being removed. So I guess that was a problem for people because of the paralyze that they will cast. And then let's see, Pharaoh Sirius has been nerfed. That's something they did say actually in the previous live letter, is that they feel that that Pharaoh Sirius was launched just way too hard than it should have been for that item level range and so on. So they're bringing it back in line with the difficulty climb of the other dungeons. So that's good. That's why there's so many nerfs though in Pharaoh Sirius. And then Hook Manor Hard, it says items dropped by enemies have been added. So okay, fair enough. So it says enemies in the following dungeons now drop more gil. Okay, fair enough. So I guess the hard for the adding, just increasing the gil for hard modes, which makes sense. Now going through the notes, it says the Wally hard and extreme have been added. That's just Leviathan, as you can see, and it says you have to finish the quest into the heart of the wall. So yeah, so you're gonna have to go to Lower Lenosia, talk to this NPC in order to unlock Leviathan to actually do these fights. And I'm assuming as well that you can't do the extreme before you've done the hard mode. Has that been said anywhere?
It wasn't said anywhere specifically, but going off of the way that it's run now, I just leveled a 1 to 50 alt recently, and yeah, you need to clear all the hard modes before you can even unlock the extremes. So yeah, I would assume that's safe to say. And just to say, point out that the Into the Heart of the World is about 8 quests into the main storyline into the new content. So.
Oh, okay, fair enough. And then it says it here. So for the extreme, it says players must first complete the quest through the Maelstrom and have completed the Bowl of Embers extreme. So through the Maelstrom, that's like later in the story as well?
Through the Maelstrom is the fight quest. I'm just going off the upper patch notes, just reading up a little bit. And the Bowl of Embers extreme is obviously Ifrit Heart or Ifrit Extreme. So.
Yeah. So that makes sense. It just basically, like, you can't just go straight into them. You have to do something in order to get there.
So in order to even fight Leviathan Extreme, you'll have to beat the hard mode and clear all the other extreme primals. So
yeah, and because Into the Heart of the World is part of the 2.2 story, I think it's a good idea basically to just do the 2.2 story, get it over with, and then you can start adding. Like, for example, Leviathan Extreme to your weekly clears. Now, I do wonder, actually, like, you know right now how you can clear the 3 extremes of Garuda, Titan, and Ifrit, and then buy an item level 90 weapon. If that's still going to be worth doing anymore, or is it just because that Leviathan Extreme drops its own weapons that it just won't be needed?
Well, it depends on whether you're able to clear Leviathan Extreme reliably, but I know for us, we're probably just going to farm Leviathan Extreme and just say, screw the X-Primal weapons. They're not, like, they're good, but they're not as good as what's out there.
Yeah. It might be just a way for progression, really. Get everyone their Leviathan Extreme weapons ASAP, just by spamming it, and then just go into the other content.
Rather than having to wait a week and spam 3 X-Primals, you can just do 1 and clear it over and over again and get weapons dropped like candy. So, I mean, which one sounds easier to do?
Yeah, I guess it depends how hard the fight is at the beginning. I guess we'll see. And then, okay, moving on with the patch notes.
They did say that both this and Moogle Extreme are going to be clearable in I-90. So
that's cool. So here we have 4 March Extreme, King Mogomog Extreme. Now, one thing that they did say during the live letter is that for Moogle Extreme, it will really be a test of DPS's ability to work together. How, why, when, where, we don't know. We have to wait and see. But they did say it's really going to be on the DPS. So, like, I think the way to relate to that is, for example, you could say that, for example, Titan Extreme was a test for the tanks, and Ifrit Extreme was a test for the healers, for example. So what they're trying to do now is focus on the DPS, to say that in this fight, the DPS will really have to work together. So how, we will just have to wait and see. And the same as Leviathan Extreme, you won't be able to unlock Moogle Extreme until you've finished Ifrit Extreme. Now,
Yep,
this is an interesting one. This is something they didn't cover in the live letter. Is that they said additional rewards have been added to Howling Eye, Naval Extreme, and Bowl of Embers Extreme, which again is the free extremes which exist right now. All of these multicolored mounts. So I think that's pretty cool.
you can get Rainbow Dash finally.
Yeah. So that's cool. So I'm hoping though that these will drop frequently, or in addition to the accessories, and not just like one or the other.
Well, honestly, because I'm assuming, and this wasn't stated anywhere. This is just an assumption based off of past observations on how they've done drops. Moogle's going to be dropping accessories, Moogle accessories specifically, and so this is incentive to keep doing the existing extremes. That's why they added the mounts in there.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, but I wonder, like, because for example, I've never been able to get the Nightmare mount from the current extremes. I've seen it drop about 6 times, but I always lose roll. So having this many mounts drop might just trying to get them all feel really, really difficult. Like you're gonna have to farm them so much to want to get all of them if you're like the completist like me.
And on top of that, like I've done mercs for extremes for a very long time. There's some people that have done them even more than I, and still don't have them. So it's the drop rate for the Nightmare Mountain existing one is abysmally low, probably like 2 or 3%. So I've only seen a handful drop out of hundreds of runs. So I'm hoping that they up the drop rate on it, especially with the new ones coming out.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do, because it would be awesome to have all of these, just for the sake of the collection, because I do like to collect mounts and minions and stuff. So let's see. So it says players will now receive the power of the Echo in the event all party members are incapacitated in certain trials. So as they said, because this is something we already spoke about, is that this will apply to the all of A Relic Reborn, and it will stack up to 50%. So if you fail on these fights up to 5 times, you will have 50% more health, damage, and healing potency. And then for the current extremes and Ultima Hard mode, it will increase 5% per death up until the maximum of 25, which is fair enough. And then moving on, it says the entry requirements following trials have been adjusted. So for Chimera and Hydra, it's 52 and above. Turn 1 is 70, turn 2 73, turn 3 70. Oh, well, yeah. Turn 3 is not real. There's no fighting involved in turn 3, so that's why it's less. And one thing they did mention in the live letter, which was sort of silly, was that they said if you want to do turn 3 just for the sake of it, maybe you can challenge yourself to do, like, for example, a timed run, like who can clear turn 3 the quickest or something. But they're keeping it in just for the sake of it. And then turn 4, 77, turn 5, 82. And it says the average item level requirements have been instated in preparations for changes which will allow single player to register for these duties. So yeah, so that's basically for when you'll be able to eventually just join the duty finder randomly without a pre-made group in order to do these dungeons. This is what the entry requirements are. So moving on to treasure hunts. Treasure hunt rewards have been adjusted as follows. New item rewards have been added for Time War Boar Skin and Pie Skin. I'm hoping for Pie Skin it actually means really good rewards, given it's the hardest map. And it says no more philosophy tombstones, because they basically won't exist anymore. And then Tombstone Mythology will receive in increased quantities, and Soldiery will be received. So same as the Beast Tribe quests, where there used to be philosophy, there'll now be mythology. Where there used to be mythology, there'll now be soldiery. That's it. So, moving on. So, there's Grand and Free Companies. Grand Companies have received the following adjustments. So, new items available from Grand Company Quartermasters. So, now all these items here are cooking... crafting items that you used to be able to buy before for 125 Tombstones of Philosophy, so you can now buy them all for 1,500 company seals each. You can buy ventures to send out these tokens, basically to send out your retainer on a venture. You can buy 5 of them for 1,000 seals, and a bunch of new furnishings as well. So that's an interesting one. You see the portraits for the different leaders for 19,150 seals. So depending on which Grand Company I guess you like the most, or maybe you could just get all three of them, you can get these portraits, which I'm guessing is what these pictures are right here. So these are the portraits you can buy for 19,000 seals each for your Free Company house. And let's see. It says the required rank following items have been adjusted. So all these different furnitures, they've I don't know, is Chief Storm Sergeant, is that higher or lower than Second Storm Lieutenant?
That's much lower. They significantly lowered the rank requirement on all the furniture, is what that all boils down to.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So they pretty much halved it in layman's terms.
Yeah, that's cool. And then it says provision and supply missions have received the following adjustments. Let's see. So players will now earn Free Company credits for delivering items. Now, Free Company credits, they're basically just the points that your Free Company can use to do buffs. Like, for example, we have the 10% EXP buff, the reduced teleport cost buff for your Free Company. That's what Free Company credits are. And it says the base experience received from delivering items has been increased. And it says a bonus for delivery of items in high demand, those marked with the star icon have been increased from 50% to 100%, and so on. I mean, do you ever do the Grand Company provisioning and supply missions?
Myself, no. But what that's important to note is that ever since 2.1, when they introduced the double buffs and the expanded buffs, etc., like the Mark II experience, like 10% versus 5, most of the Free Companies have been posting on the forum saying that they're gradually losing points, even like us, which we've had a throng of relatively new members all leveling alts. We're still going down. Like the Free Cup Legacy actually had like 2.2 million when I first joined. We're down to 1.6 now, and so it's important that they're doing this so we can actually keep the buffs up, because at some point we'd actually run out. And
yeah,
so
that makes sense.
And so I figure it's important to note that actually this gives people a way to actually get more points for the Grand Company, or for the Free Company rather, so that they can go out and keep those buffs up and keep them up more often, because a lot of them are really nice, like the Chocobo XP. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, that's cool. So now moving forward, it says Grand Company leave progress will now appear on screen upon defeating enemies. Is that okay? Just the same as other quests, I guess. It's like when you kill, if you have to kill 3 monsters and you kill 2, it'll basically say 2 out of 3. So, fine. It says, in the event Grand Company Master does not log in for 35 days Earth time, ownership will automatically transfer to another Free Company member based upon the following criteria: members who have logged in within the past 7 days, higher ranked members preferred, senior members preferred. So basically, if you're, because I think that has happened to some Free Companies, that their leader has just quit the game or left or whatever, and then they lose the ability to do really anything, to change the ranks, to do whatever. So rather than having to spend forever trying to get Square Enix to change it, they're basically just saying if he doesn't log in for 35 days, it will be transferred automatically to the next highest ranked player who's still playing, which I think it's a good fail-safe, really, in case, let's say, for example, God forbid, the Free Company leader dies in real life. You know, you want to be able to, you know, the world keeps spinning, let's say, so you have to be able to keep your Free Company going without having to disband it and reform it just because of the leader leaving. So, and let's say it says the amount of Free Company credits received for Free Company member actions has been increased, which exactly like you said before, this is to counter, so you don't run out of them, which is fair enough. And then it says the amount of Free Company credits received for treasure hunts has been increased. Cool. It's just another activity which is good for Free Companies to do treasure maps and things like that together anyway. And then it says gardening has been added for housing. So it says players can now set a garden to their estate grounds, allowing for a collection of various plants. Now, something they mentioned during the live letter is that there'll be some items which can only be gathered or created from gardening. You know, so whether they're crafting mats or whatever, they will only exist in gardening. Now, one other thing they did say about that to reassure players is that at the end of the day, like, let's say you don't have a Free Company, or your Free Company can't afford a house or whatever, then all of the items made through gathering can be sold on the market board. So do not be worried. It's simply a case of it won't be impossible to craft some things if you don't have a house. It basically, you can just buy them. but it's just something nice to do. And the size of plots available to you is dependent on the amount of how big your house is, the size of the estate. So it says it right here. It says the size of an estate will determine the number of garden patches it can contain. Cottages, houses, and mansions can hold 1, 2, and 3 garden patches respectively. So in our case, in Legacy, we do have a mansion, so we will be able to get the biggest one. And it says there are 3 types of garden patches, each allowing for a different number of gardening beds. So it says the round one, which has 4 garden beds, the oblong for 6, and the deluxe garden patch for 8. I'm assuming we will go for the deluxe one so we can grow as much as possible. And it says, they basically said the way that gardening works is simply you get a seed, you plant the seed, and it will basically grow over time. It says soil, says players will also need to prepare soil for their gardens, which can be obtained by miners. The type of soil will depend on the region where it was gathered. So it says soil type and grade affects the yield, quality and quantity and likelihood of intercrossing. Now, something they said in the live letter, what intercrossing is that when you grow items together or grow plants together, they do have the ability to crossbreed, which means they can then drop rare items. So they basically said if you discover like these 2 items grow well together and they crossbreed and so on, and you've got a rare item from it, then do more of it. And then eventually, if you can do more crossbreeding, you can then breed the crossbreeds together, if that makes sense. So, yeah. And one thing they did say as well when it comes to doing gardening and so on is that it will take between 3 to 5 days to grow an item. And the good thing about it as well is that it's not going to be that detailed. So they're not going to just dry out if you haven't watered it in an hour or whatever. It's going to be very easy and lenient to do. So they said, do not worry. You're not going to have people like, logging in every other hour to water the plants or anything like that. It's going to be very easy to do. And it says, let's see, raising crops. It says plant growth can be promoted through constant tending and use of fertilizer. The rate of growth and the amount of produce yielded varies between plants. So it says you can fertilize crops to enrich soil and accelerate growth. It says can only be applied to a plant once per hour. It said you can tend crops, so tend and water plants. Neglected plants will eventually wither. And it says remove a plant from its bed before it yields crops. So you do have the ability to, if you want to just replant, you can just remove it whenever you like. And then it says harvesting crops. So it says when plants have fully grown, players can harvest their crops to obtain produce. Plants may yield high quality produce depending on how they were cultivated. Certain items can only be obtained through gathering. Now, one thing I'm assuming based on the based on the trailer and based on all these screenshots is that I'm assuming you're gonna need to be a botanist to actually do all this, but it's not detailed anywhere. Do you reckon that you will have to be a botanist to do this?
I would suspect it, but honestly, I'm not entirely sure because they're kind of going away from, they want to have maximum participation in it, and there's a large percentage of the population that has no interest in the gathering and crafting classes that would want to play this kind of stuff. So it's entirely possible where they would just they would have the botanist manage it, but to just allow anybody to come in and help raise it, so to speak. So it's something we're going to have to wait for, to be honest with you. Because they don't say here, but I suspect you're right, but I think only to a certain degree, based off of Yoshi and the other producers and how their thought process.
Okay, I have already volunteered to our free company leader to be one of the gardeners in the free company because I would really like to explore this, especially when it comes to it says here intercrossing, because the idea of being able to crossbreed plants because they basically said when you finish growing a plant, you get new seeds. So if you do manage to get a crossbreed of plants, you will get those rare seeds. And then it says, even here, it says this process can be repeated with intercrossed plants and may give rise to heretofore unseen specimens. So I think what they're basically saying is that you can breed them together to get a rare plant, and then you can breed those rare plants together once more to then get an even more rare plant. But I think that's where they're going to limit it, to be honest. Otherwise, they'll become too complicated. So simply, you'll be able to, let's say, breed twice, but that's it. So how that will work, we'll just have to wait and see. But that's something I am very interested in exploring.
I'm looking forward to your orangos, a crossbreed between oranges and mangoes.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see what sort of items they are and what they're going to be used for. Like, it's very possible that these sort of items will be crafting materials, but I don't know if they'll be crafting materials for armor. Maybe they'll be crafting materials for, say, potions or food or whatever. We're just going to have to wait and see what they're used for.
I do see rare foods being used from gathering that have a higher potency than the stuff that's out there right now, and that would be especially useful for raiding, especially in the new coil. So I see that being a very highly sought after commodity if it's proven to be useful.
Absolutely, yeah. So I guess we'll have to see. That's why I want to volunteer for this stuff as well, so we can try and discover this stuff as soon as. And then, okay, moving on with the patch notes, it says a basement level has been added to small houses, which is something they announced, like, even in the last live letter. So that's pretty cool.
That's in preparation for airships and stuff like that. That's coming like way down the road.
Yeah. And it's just as well to give more value for money, because the difference in size at the moment between a small house and a medium is too much. It's ridiculous, the difference. So now they've doubled, by having a basement in the small houses, they've effectively almost doubled the land space of a small house, which makes them, I'd guess, 100% more value for money. So, and it's a good thing to have, because the small house as well, if you've ever been into a small free company estate, they are just so tiny. You can barely put basically an item in each corner and maybe a couple more items on the walls, and that's it. And then you run out of space. So this will allow at least more value for your money, especially given that even the small houses can be worth 2 million gil. So, yeah. So it says the maximum number of furnishings for a small house has been increased from 50 to 100. So, okay, given that you have double the space. So now this is an interesting one. It says crafting facilities have been added. Placing one of the following in your estate will allow crafters level 40 or above to use these facilities to increase their CP for a fixed period of time. And I think that's
below. It says below, not above.
Oh, below. Sorry, 40 or below these. Okay, that makes sense. Because I was thinking about this before. I was wondering, like, because we already have the Boola-based food, which increases CP a huge amount anyway, so what's the point? But I guess this is for lower level crafters, which is, I guess it's a good thing. And if you've watched any of my crafting guides, which are already on my YouTube channel, you will see how important CP is, because CP means you can do more abilities, then more likely get 100% high quality and so on. So the more CP, the better. So these items will help with that. And then, now this is a good one. It says players can now set a summoning bell in their estate to call a retainer. Because that's one thing that was missing, really, to be honest. So now you can call your retainer in your house. So it says estate summoning bells cannot be used to call the esthetician, which is basically the hairdresser barbershop. You can only do that within your own in-room, which is fine, it makes sense. So then it says now players can now obtain permits to place merchant shops in their estate property. So these free permits available for material supplier, junk monger permits, and mender permits. To be honest, for us, I think just mender will do. I don't think we need the rest, but whatever. If it's free, if it's easy, why not? So it just means basically that there will be less of a requirement to run back to town if you have your own house and so on, because everything that you will get in a town, effectively they're saying that you can get them in your free company estate. And that's also why they've added market boards to the different housing areas as well, within a short walk of every house. So for example, with our free company house, we have one 10 meters from our front door.
Not even.
Yeah, so really, really close. So yeah, so they're basically just making it like that they want to, I guess, make the housing areas a lot more used. I think they want to make it that you can stay in these areas and get everything done that you want to do without having to return to the city-states. So, let's see. It says players can now speak with the following NPCs to travel directly from residential areas to their associated city-states. Okay, fair enough. And then it says Aephorite have been added to each residential area. So now I'm assuming that when they say Aephorite, they mean actual full-size Aephorite crystals, which you can teleport to, not just like the little teleports inside the estate itself.
Well, right now you can buy a teleport for your house, like the Legacy Mansion has one, and so you can teleport directly to your house. But if your free company like hasn't gotten lucky with the CT drop or anything else like that you need to make that, then you can set your home point to the Aetheryte that's going to be in the housing area, so you can actually go there without having to have if you aren't lucky enough to have the teleport at your house.
Yeah, I don't think that's required from CT. I think you can buy the miniature Aetheryte for Grand Company seals. The item you're talking about is what's used to just make the Savage Arc
I stand corrected.
doorway thing.
Yeah. I stand corrected. I was assuming that was needed for the Aetheryte.
No, you can just buy it for Grand Company seals. It's not even that expensive. I actually already bought one in case they can be used for individual player housing. Anyway, let's see. It says an animation will now play after building an estate hall. Okay, fair enough. And then it says in preparation for additional residential wards as well as individual player housing, players who join a duty or log out within an estate hall will now return to the estate entrance when logging in or returning from an instant. And it says this adjustment will improve the management of housing and facilities, and facilitate the addition of plots and estate halls. Which I guess makes sense. It's basically just for server lag issues, that they don't want people always to be located inside a house if they don't have to be.
Well, one thing that they made a big point on is that every single house for every single player in an instance, so you have the 5 housing wards, each of which have 50 houses in them. Each of those has its own instance, and they say that it's incredibly server intensive for that to be maintained. And so this is a way for them to decrease or pretty much optimize their servers, because there's on my job is IT, so you don't have any idea how much memory that eats up when like somebody's AFK or logs out inside their house. They have to keep the instance open in order for that person to log back in. This will allow them to actually implement more wards. So, because like right now the wards are starting to get pretty filled up with houses.
That's cool. Okay, now moving forward, they said the challenge log has been added. Now this is an interesting feature. So it says the challenge log contains a list of adventuring objectives across a wide range of categories. Completing any one of these categories will earn you rewards. Completion status is reset on a weekly basis, and it is possible to undertake the challenges repeatedly. Additional rewards can be earned for overall completion of the challenge log. So for me, this is another thing. It's just to promote leveling alts and stuff without being bored of so because at the moment, when I leveled all of my characters to 50, after I'd finished all the main scenario and all of the Guildhest and so on, all that I basically did from then on was dungeon farming and fate grinding, and that was pretty much it, and maybe some leave quests. So whereas this is just adding a different dynamic to leveling up, so you can it will keep variety in the game, and these rewards are enormous. So 84,000 experience for doing fates in 5 different regions, for example, is a huge bonus that you can get each week. So this will help tremendously with what you're doing. So this is a really good feature, and I said it makes playing the game more varied, more fun, so you don't feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again. It will basically make doing stuff in the game more interesting over the period of time, because right now in the game there's 20 classes you can level up, including crafting and gathering, and I have already leveled up all of them to 50, but now I'm working on my alt character, so having to do that all again for my alt character feels really boring because I've already done it, so this will add a different dynamic to leveling up the alt, which will make it a lot more fun. So so thank God it's a weekly reset as well. And you can see here it's not that complicated really, because you see this one for Fates, there's only 2 challenges on this list, so it's not like doing all the challenges each week is going to take a huge amount of time. These seem to be fairly simple to do. So yeah. So anyway, so it says new hairstyles have been added. They also showed that in the 2.2 trailer as well, what they all are. And let's see, the NPC Kupini Paku has been renamed to Pugni Pak. Okay, God knows why. And it says dialogue for certain NPC will now change to reflect player progress. Okay, that makes sense, I guess. It's like they want to make it that they will just talk to you differently depending where you are in the game, which is fair enough. It makes you feel that they're reacting to you and they're not just reading the same thing to everyone. And then it says open world areas have seen the following changes. It says additional buildings have been constructed in Revenant's Toll. Now, Revenant's Toll in Mordona it's been growing, basically, isn't it? Like every patch, it gets more and more developed. Yeah. So eventually, go ahead.
It started with 2.1, and like every single even minor patch, they've been adding stuff. Like after 2.16, they added like banners and stuff inside, and I'm sure other people have seen YouTube videos on how to climb up there. But they've great. I had a friend just come back from not playing since before 2.1, and he came into Revenant's Toll, and he was like, "Whoa, this place is completely different." And they said they're in the live letter. They said it's going to be a major stronghold by 3.0. So,
yeah, I mean, do you remember how it was when the game when A Realm Reborn first launched, and we were still buying Darklight gear from the vendors? It was basically just a bunch of tents.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I was just about to say. So it looked like a homeless camp. So.
Yeah, so it's nice as well that because you do if you've ever visited a Revenant's Toll, you do see the people doing construction work and bashing the hammers all day and night. So it's nice that it actually means it develops into something, and they're not just doing it for no reason.
I really like the dynamic world. This is the first MMO I've had where that's actually been the case, where the world changes as the patches come out. So
yeah,
it's been kind of nice.
Yeah, it's very cool how they are always revisiting places in the game and making them better. So let's see. So the Kobold settlement has been established in Outer Lenosia, Sahagin settlement in Western Lenosia. These are basically just the camps for the new Beast Tribe quests. And then it says, in order to alleviate server load during weekly reset for item acquisition and player progress, the reset time for the following items and duties has been changed to Tuesday at 1 a.m. Pacific time. So, Allegan Tombstone of the Soldiery. So basically, it just means that the weekly reset is now going to be on Tuesdays and not on Mondays, which is fair enough.
Right now, the coil reset, I call it the coil reset because it's what I care about. And when your myth resets, all that stuff, it's going to, right now that resets at midnight JST, and so they're changing it to be more in line with where the majority of the user base is, and so they can minimize server load. I don't know if it's going to be across the board, meaning that the Japanese servers will reset at the same time as the NA, but I would suspect that'll be the case. So that just means that 1 a.m. Pacific time, I actually did math, that's actually around 1 o'clock, that's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon-ish your time for...
Well, 1 a.m. PDT for me is actually 9 a.m. UK.
Okay, and that's actually Monday still for me in Hawaii, but it's it'll be a significant change for rating, that's for sure. So you're going to be running Coil on Tuesdays instead of Mondays now.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll get used to that because it just takes the pressure off Mondays. Because they did say that apparently on a Monday you are 9 times more likely to have a heart attack than any other day of the week, just from the sheer number of people having them. So they're basically trying to take the burden off the Mondays. So it's Monday is heart attack day, really. So anything they could do to alleviate that, good for them. So anyway, battle system, we're talking now about PvP. It says players similar PvP rank will be prioritized when queuing for the War's Den. Now this is something they touched on in the live letter. They basically said that for a lot of players, PvP is just really boring when you're just trying to first get into PvP, and then all you're facing is PvP rank 30 players fully geared who just basically one-shot you. So they're now making it that PvP ranked players will face against each other, that you won't face you won't basically face people from high ranks when you're low rank. And it says a PvP rank required to equip Dire Wolf gear has been reduced. The changes made to PvP rank requirements for Dire Wolf gear are as follows. So before, when they say Dire Wolf gear, they're referring to the item level 90 PvP gear. So they're now saying that from rank 20, you'll be able to buy the accessories, and 22 for feet and waist, 24 for head and hands, 26 for legs, 28 for chest, and 30 for the weapons. Which is fair enough, to be honest, because it was sort of silly to have to wait all the way until rank 30 to buy anything at item level 90. So this will allow you to spend your points as you go, rather than wasting them or spending them on item level 70 PvP gear. So it says additional PvP ranks and rewards are scheduled to be added in patch 2.25. Now, speaking of that, they did say how it will go up to rank 40, I think they mentioned. But now one thing, I don't know if you noticed it in the live letter, but they were talking about something called, what was it called? Frontline. Now, is that Frontline? Is that meant to be like a battleground or something for PvP?
I actually have done a lot of research into this, so I'm glad you asked me that question because I was going to talk about it anyway. Frontlines is going to be very similar to World v World on Guild Wars 2. The castle, that's what it's been hinted at in either both previous live letter. And so you'll be given, like, it'll be more akin to a huge battleground versus just like a war zone in Star Wars Tour or Battleground in WoW where you just have like objective PvP. It's gonna be more like a war PvP game than an actual like ballista type in 11 or Hutball in Star Wars or whatnot.
That's fair enough.
And that's coming with 2.3. They've already confirmed that in the live letter that Frontlines will be 2.3 as well as the Gold Saucer. So something to look forward to, quote unquote.
Yeah, I mean, I will touch upon all of the 2.3 well, it's not really announcements, more just preview speculation, let's say, that I've written down from the live letter as well. But I'll do that at the end because we're almost at the end of the patch notes now as well. We're at least 3/4 of the way through, so I'll cover that quickly at the end. So anyway, so moving on with the notes, it says Elegant Two-Stone Soldiery have been added. So it can only obtain 450 per week, can carry a maximum of 2,000, which is the same as the current Elegant Tombstones of Mythology. So thank God it's 450. And it's not been reduced to the 300 like it used to be before. So it says the weekly invitation of mythology has been removed. Elegant Tombstone philosophy is no longer attainable. Please note any Elegant Tombstone philosophy obtained prior to 2.2 will not be lost. All trials and duties that formerly yielded philosophy will now either yield mythology or soldiery. And it says Oriana in Revenant's Soul will now give players the option to exchange philosophy for mythology. And I don't know if this is a one-for-one like exchange, to be honest, because if it is, they didn't actually say, like, if you could exchange simply 2,000 philosophy for 2,000 mythology, it might actually be worth pre-farming them, but they haven't confirmed that. We don't know, because they might turn around and say, for example, that 500 philosophy equals 200 mythology, so we have to wait and see. And it says items which required Elegant Tombstone philosophy can no longer be obtained from the NPC Ariana, but this does not mean that they're no longer available full stop, because as you saw previously, like almost at the beginning of the patch notes, all of the crafting materials and so on will be available through your Grand Company for company seals, and all of the gear, for example the Darklight gear, will drop in the dungeons. So where you have like Amdapor Keep or Wanderer's Palace and so on, all of that will drop there.
Hold on.
Sure.
It's actually the AK gear, AK and Pharos, all that stuff. Those drops are not changing. Those will still drop what's currently dropped from them. For I-55 for AK WP, and then I-60 for Pharos, and then the 2 hard modes that came out with 2.1. The 2 new hard modes and the new dungeon are what's going to drop Darklight gear, and that has an I-55 requirement. So they did touch on that in the live letter.
Okay, so basically, but to be honest, I reckon they should just remove them. But that's just my own opinion. You know, that's up to them. But because it seems silly having item level 55 gear when you can get item level 70 so quickly, and it seems weird to me because like. Well, I don't know. Whatever. Well, I guess it doesn't matter because the progression will be so fast anyway. So I think for a lot of new players coming into the game when they first started, the first thing they will be doing at level 50 is dungeon spamming and then just buying the full mythology set so that they get straight to item level 90 ASAP. And I don't know about you. I am planning to do that for my alt classes at all my spare mythology. I will be getting the full mythology gear sets for my alts because I thought they looked cool anyway, so they would be nice to have.
Yeah, Yeah, as well. On Asa, I plan on doing that as they come. I'm not gonna go out and specifically farm it, just because of the fact that it will come pretty damn quickly, and then I won't have anything else to spend it on anyway. So, but I will say that the new, so like CT is gonna drop 200 mythology now instead of 200 philosophy. So it's gonna drop 200 mythology and 50 of the soldiery tombstones. So it's going to be really quick to get the I-90 stuff. So you'll be able to
Yeah.
get full I-90 in almost a day or two of just pure farming, just pure blast farming it. So
Yeah, and I am really looking forward to that because I'm leveling up on my ult right now, Bard, because I need it as my second class on my ult. And if I can get it full, the full Bard mythology set, like really soon after 2.2 launches, I'm going to be extremely happy about that. So, yeah. So, anyway.
it is important to note that the I-90 is going to be the new mythology. The soldiery gear is going to be I-100 or I-105. There's been two different kinds of there's been two different like translations I've read from the live letter saying that it was I-105 or I-100. So there kind of like some ambiguity with regarding that, but it is very clear that coil gear and the new tombstones are a difference. The coil gear is actually a higher quality than the new tombstone gear. So if you're going to be farming that, you're still going to need to do coil to get best in slot.
That's cool. So, yeah. So, basically, all it's basically doing is gearing players up so that they can challenge all of the new content at a reasonable level and it won't just be impossibly hard for them. I think that's what it does. It's bringing up the minimum of the players.
Yeah, pretty much. They're just making it so that it's not going to be 11 where you have to farm for 6 months to pass the old content to even access the new stuff.
Yeah. And it is something that they did criticize because I remember people talking about it before, even in my old free company, that they designed it in a certain way. For example, only 300 tombstones of mythology per week. That's what it used to be before, to just slow progress down while they were getting content ready. But now that they basically have the content ready, now it's, full steam ahead sort of thing. Now let's like get the gear, let's get the upgrades, let's get the new content done. So yeah, and by the time because they've added in so much, they've actually already said when it comes, for example, upgrading your relics and so on, that they'll be very surprised if people have actually finished those by the time patch 2.25 launches. So they didn't say it's impossible. They did say that upgrading is unrestricted, but the chances of it being done by then is unlikely. So it's like, okay, fair enough. So they've set, I think that's almost like a challenge to the hardcore players. Like, can you get your relic done before patch 2.25?
Yeah, the new Zodiac weapon is supposed to be ridiculously difficult to get. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they implemented that. Hoping that it's not RNG based, because that will make me cry.
Yeah. And they did say as well during the live letter that it's going to be a combination of, you will need tombstones to upgrade it, but you will also need boss drops from the second binding coil as well. So it's not just like, and let's hope though that that boss drop will be for everyone who's on the quest and not just like, oh, everyone's on the quest and only one person can get it a week, because that would be really annoying. I'm hoping it's just a case of the requirement will simply be defeat the boss in say turn 7 or something, and then once that's done, then you can get the next part of your upgrade. So, but we will see. Stuff. We have to wait and see. So it says limit break effects will now always display regardless of battle effect settings in the configuration menu.
And that's annoying. I'm actually upset about that one, because like if you are on say Titan Extreme, and after the heart phase, you're having to dodge the landslide with being in specific groups use the Black Maid's limit break, sometimes which has level 3, and if you level 3 limit break while you're trying to dodge those, it's almost impossible to see. So I actually specifically turned that off. So I'm actually not happy about that one. That's actually the only one I'm not happy about. Some people might be, but to me it strikes me as a limiting factor in gameplay.
Yeah, so people will basically just not do the limit break at that moment anymore because it will just make it too hard. And yeah, because I have been in that situation before where we've sort of limit braked free Meteor, the two ads on Titan. He's done a landslide, and then all you were able to see of the landslide was the two sort of blue lines. But the reason that's fine, so you can dodge the landslide, but you can't see the edge of the map. So you have to be very particular about where you move to make sure you don't run off the edge of the map. So yeah, so it is yeah, so people just have to be careful really about when they do the limit breaks for that reason. So anyway, moving on, it says return can, but the thing is, with all changes, even though they're changing it now for patch 2.2, they can then just change it again in a future patch, especially if people complain on the forums. So I don't really see that as a problem. Anything that's done can be undone, is the way I've always looked at this game. So anyway, it now says return can no longer be used when engaged with an enemy. Okay, so you can't just leave a fight by returning like when you're in combat. So it says Chocobo companions have been adjusted as follows. So it says players can now ride the Chocobo even after it has been summoned as a companion. Thank God for that, because that was wasting. I probably wasted hundreds of Geisel Greens only for the fact that I had to dismiss it and resummon it every time I mounted up.
Yeah, and I will say also something to note that is not in the patch notes, but they've said in development posts on the forums is that while you can ride your chocobo while it's summoned, you can only ride your chocobo while it's summoned. You can't ride a nightmare or a magitech or whatnot. It has to be your chocobo. So it is very important that, like, if like me, I have Mount Roulette set. I'm gonna have to change that if I want to be able to like use my chocobo while I'm farming or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we'll see, because it doesn't say that here, but we'll have to see that in game. We're gonna have to test that in game to see if that is the case. Like, not unless they just made it that if you've already summoned your chocobo, that hitting the Mount Roulette will work anyway, but only put you on your chocobo. I mean, that would be an interesting change, but we'll have to wait and see. It says when targeting your chocobo companion, the chocobo submenu is now available. The summoning time for a chocobo companion is now 30 minutes, regardless of rank. So okay, fair enough. So it says spawn rate of monsters in the following areas has been adjusted. Now these are the areas basically where the new Beast Tribe quests are going to be. And I'm assuming when they say adjusted that they basically will just increase the amount they respawn. Because there'll be so many people there farming dailies. And then it says improvements made to the frequency with which player positioning is updated in patch 2.1 will now apply to all instances. Now what this is referring to is the server check of your position. So in fights like Titan hard mode, for example, before, it used to check your location on the server every 1/3 of a second. And that was a problem for people with latency problems, because it would mean that even though they're out of the landslide, maybe even half a second afterwards, the landslide will still hit them. So they updated that in patch 2.1 to be every 0.1 seconds. So now what they're basically saying is that this will apply to all dungeons and not just a fight like Titan, for example. Which is okay, good,
So
good.
it'll apply to like Hockey Man or Hard or whatnot, in addition to the extremes. So
yeah, so the sort of weird lag effect, like so when people keep saying, "Oh, I was out of that, I still got hit anyway," hopefully soon that will be a thing of the past, and that was just a technical exercise for Square Enix more than anything. It's just one of the things you have to learn as you go along. And anyway, so items. It says a master category has been added under special recipes. So it says to access recipes in the master category, players must change to the class to a level 50 Disciple of Hand and then use a master recipe book for that particular class. There are 15 master recipe books and roughly 100 master recipes in total. Two types of master recipe books are available, which can be obtained by speaking with the NPCs in Revenant's Toll. It says master recipe book for glamours, master recipe books for crafting. I'm not actually 100% sure what this is even for, to be honest.
I can answer that question. It's for the crafting one is for the new I-90 crafted gear. That I'm assuming it'll be a 3-star synth. They touched that there is going to be a new tier of crafting gear as well. That's going to be I-90, and so all of you with pentamilded I-55 gear, yeah, you're going to be crying over that. But yeah, they're going to implement the new gear, but this is how you're going to craft it. is with these new recipes. As for what the glamour book is, I'm not entirely sure because the glamour is kind of independent of the crafting from what I understood. But I think they touch on that later in the patch notes.
Yeah, I would have to disagree with you there about the crafting gear, because when they said the word crafting gear, I think they were just referring to the fact that crafters will be able to make item level 90 gear, like you said, in terms of things that people can use, just like the way they used to be able to have like heavy dark steel and griffin skin. They didn't specifically say that you will need higher level crafting gear as a crafter. They just said that higher level crafting gear will exist. So they didn't specifically say if it was for battle classes or for battle classes. And they also, in all of the previews and everything as well, when you look at the trailers and so on, all of the gear they showed was like crafted gear in terms of for battle classes, not for crafting. Because I'm sure they would have shown that off. You would have assumed they would show like, oh, this is what the new weaver looks like, or this is what the new blacksmith looks like, but you didn't see that anywhere. And when it comes to the master recipe book for glamours, that's referring to the prisms, because basically the prisms which are used for the glamour system have to be crafted, and you need a different prism for each one.
I didn't know that. So
yeah, so depending on the type of gear. So for example, if you want to, for example, do a glamour on your paladin gear, you're probably going to need something from Armorsmith, for example, because that's what you use to repair the gear. So if you repair your own gear, you can see it does tell you what level of dark matter you need, but also what class and what level of class you need to repair it. So, and each prism, for example, it will basically just say like a leather worker prism if you want to glamour your leather gear or armor and so on. So this will be good for all crafts, not just for one. So, and I'm happy it's limited to level 50 as well. So, but what that means for me, basically, because I am 50 everything, it means that I should be able to craft all of this stuff when patch 2.2 launches. But, we will see. But I will be making separate videos about that for my YouTube channel in the future, because it is a lot of detail that really has to be explored. So we really have to see what that means, and how it, affects things going forward. In terms of, because they did say as well that patch 2.2 will be good for crafters. So we will see how much money people will sell prisms for and so on. The sort of gear that we can craft as well.
I can guarantee it's going to be very high right out the door. So
yeah,
lots
absolutely.
of people. So if you want to make lots of money, crafters sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I hope so. So yeah, because I did spend a lot of time and money on getting my crafting gears for all 8 crafts ready. And people said, oh, you've taken it too far, but I knew that eventually this stuff will come into the game. It's just common sense. That's just how MMOs work. So hopefully my hard work in the past will pay me huge dividends in the future. So anyway, moving on. It says glamours have been implemented. So obviously the glamour system is your ability to change the look of one piece of gear to another. So they said the example, giving a Valor Surcoat the appearance of a Heli Allagan armor. And to be honest, I would never do it that way round. I would actually change the look of the Heavy Allagan armor into the Paladin Surcoat, but whatever. And but it's down to you really. It's like you just change the gear to look however you like in order for the set to look interesting. Now, there are restrictions on that, of course. You can't just change any gear to look like any other gear. They have to be the same type. And, for example, you can't change a plate gear to look like a leather. It has to be plate equals plate. And also, as far as I was aware that they announced in the previous live letter, that you can only change the gear to look the same, to be the same item level or lower. You can't change it to look like something higher. So, for example, you can't be a level 1, let's say, summoner, and then glamour all of your gear to look like your level 50 black mage gear, which looks, which is the same class, the same type of gear. So there is that restriction that way as well. So anyway, looking at the thing, so it says to unlock glamours, players must first complete the following quest. So you have to go to Mordorna, speak to this person. So basically, I'm assuming once patch 2.2 launches, we're going to go into Revenant's Toll, and we're going to see like 20 new quests for things to unlock. And then it says glamour restrictions. It says the gear whose appearance you wish to alter, blah, blah, let's see. So, oh, sorry, you must possess the following items. So what you want to alter, what you want it to look like, the corresponding glamour prism, and you have different levels of prism for each class. So you see 1 to 20, 21 to 40, 41 to 60, 61 to 80, and 81 plus. But this is the level of the gear itself, the item level, not your level. And they said each crafted class must use a unique set of glamour prisms. So you can see here, this is a grade 1 glamour prism for woodworking. So each craft will be able to make different levels of glamour prism, which is required for the different levels of gear. And then it says casting glamours. It says all you do, you right click on the item you want to change. Make sure that you obviously have the relevant item you want to change it into and the required prism. You click on cast glamour, and then it says the glamour prism will be consumed upon use, but no gear will be lost in the process. So you're only altering the look. The gears will still exist. And you can see this little icon above it, this sort of red tick, to show that yes, the look of this gear has been changed. So in this case, he's changed the monk mythology chest to look like the chest piece that you can get from Crystal Tower. And it says, furthermore, gear used to cast glamours will be used upon use of the glamour prism, blah, 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 okay? And then it says glamour conditions, which is what I was touching on before. It says it may be used for any items meeting the following conditions. It says base and projected items of the same type, as in hands, feet, etc. The equipment level of the projected item is equal or lower than the base item, as I said. So you can change, for example, your black mage robe to look like a battle mage robe, which drops in Brayflox Longstop, but you can't change your battle mage robe to look like the level 51. You can only change it one way, not the other. And then it says base item and protected item are equipable by the same class or job. Base item or protected item are equipable by the same gender or race. Okay, so if there is any gender or race restrictions, you can't just change your male gear to be female gear. And something else they touched on in the live letter is the fact that you will be able to use the special seasonal event gear as well for the glamour system, as long as it does meet these requirements. And then it says for gear occupying more than one gear slot, one of the following conditions must be met in addition to the above. So it says the base item and projected item occupy the same number of gear slots. Now what this is referring to is the sort of combined items, which for example are a chest piece and a headpiece. For example, the heavy Allegan or dark light tank chest pieces. So they're only a chest piece, which also occupy a headpiece. So those sort of double items, they can only be glamoured into each other. They can't be glamoured into the single item pieces. And it says all of the projected items gear slots fall within the base items gear slots, whatever that means. So basically, it's just the same as what I said, is that, for example, this is only basically referring to the heavy Allegan chest and the dark light chest for tank. I mean, that's all that exists right now. If they're going to add in more of these sort of double items in the future, we just have to wait and see. Especially more cowls, because the cowls are double items as well for casters. And okay, so this just goes in a bit more detail about that. So now it says crafting glamour prisms. So it says each crafting class must use its respective master recipe book in order to craft glamour prisms. Only level 50 crafters can use master recipe books. Furthermore, there is no master recipe book of glamours available for culinarian. Fair enough, because culinary can only make food, so there's no need for them to ever craft gear, whereas alchemists can make some pieces of gear. So that's why an alchemist would and a culinarian wouldn't. And then it says, after completing the quest Mission Impossible, players will be able to purchase master recipe books as well as the clear prisms needed to craft glamour prisms. And clear prisms may be purchased from the following NPCs. So basically, it's basically saying that the clear prism is just one of the crafting materials used to make the glamour prisms. And then it says dispelling glamours. So it says, when in possession of a Glamour Dispeller, the remove option will be available in the cast Glamour interface. All that basically means is that if you've used a Glamour system to change the look of one piece of gear to another, you can just undo it and change it back using the Glamour Dispeller. And it says the Glamour Dispeller will be consumed upon use. Glamour Dispellers may be purchased from the prison vendors above. Okay? They haven't actually said, though, how much they cost, have they?
No, but I'm assuming it'll be similar to like consumables for materia, etc. It should be comparable. That's just common sense.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be too expensive. So now they're going to talk about retainer ventures. We're almost done with the patch notes, and then I'll just cover the rest of the live letter notes. So it says players can now assign the retainer ventures and send retainers out to the field to procure items. And you have to unlock this. You have to do a quest to actually unlock it. And you can see these are the locations of the quests in each of the towns. And it says, once unlocked, the following categories will be added to the retainer interface. Number of retainer ventures, view venture report, assigned venture, view retainer attributes and gear, and assign retainer class. Now, the thing about this is that you will be able to level up your retainer as a class, but you can only be one class at a time. If you want to reset the class, you will forfeit whatever levels you've done for the other class, and you have to start again for level 1. But they did say that leveling up your retainers will be fast and easy. But one thing they did say basically is that you can't be a level 1 retainer farming level 50 mobs. That doesn't make sense. So you will have to spend time on this. And you will have to spend Grand Company seals to buy ventures. So one thing that I find that this is doing is basically they're adding a lot more purpose to your Grand Company seals, because I've been sitting on 40,000 plus Grand Company seals for weeks now with absolutely nothing worth buying. So this is really going to get a lot more use out of your Grand Company seals, so you won't be scared to keep earning them. And it says, after unlocking retainer ventures, the market board status in the retainer interface will also display venture status. It's like, okay, fair enough. And then you can assign it whatever class you like. Now, one thing which is really interesting about the retainers is the fact that you can use gear on them. So it says retainers can be equipped with gear befitting their assigned class and level, which will in turn affect items procured on their venture. Items will be procured in increased quantities by increasing the average item level for Disciples of War and Magic, or gathering rating for Disciples of Land. Moreover, for retainers set as Disciples of Land, increasing perception will result in higher likelihood of obtaining higher quality items. Retainer gear can be changed via the retainer character menu. It says retainer gear cannot be changed when a venture is in progress, which I guess makes sense. And it says gear equipped by a retainer will be bound upon completion of the retainer venture. However, bound items can still be exchanged and used by both players and the retainers. So now, I personally have actually kept in my one of my retainers all of my Darklight gear, for example. I was keeping them all for the vanity system. But it's nice to know that I will be able to use them on my retainers as well, which I think is pretty cool. So it says gear durability will not be affected by retainer ventures, which means basically you won't have to repair them if your retainers are using them. And it says a spirit bonding rating will not be affected by retainer ventures either. Fair enough. And then it says types of retainer venture: hunting, field, and exploration. So I do wonder what the quick exploration one is about, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. And it says the following ventures will task your retainer with procuring a specified item. So you can be miner, botanist, fishing, or you can just be a Disciple of War and Magic to do hunting. And if you're doing hunting, you can select what items you want it to farm for you, for how long. And it will also tell you as well how long it will take. So it'll take an hour, basically, and how much experience they will get for it and what items it will bring back. So that's pretty cool. And then it says the following exploration venture will allow your retainer to freely explore the world, procuring items as they see fit. So they will just bring back whatever they like in the time. And it says, although these ventures require more time to complete, they yield far greater experience and also allow retainers to procure more obscure items such as elegant bronze and silver pieces. Okay, so it's basically just saying that you could just set them out to do random exploration and it will give you a lot more experience than just whatever, but you can't it's basically like you either want a specific item or you just send them out randomly and just see what they bring back by themselves. So to be honest, I don't know about you, but I'm probably just going to be doing the random one, because there isn't really any items that they would bring to me that I can't just get myself quickly.
Yeah, that's me. Well, I don't have any crafting level or gathering, etc. It's all sitting at level 1.
Yeah. So I am interested in this, definitely. I will try and make sure I keep the retainers busy, that's for sure. And then it says, upon reaching level 10, retainers can undertake quick exploration ventures. Retainers assigned to quick exploration will always come back with a single item, which will remain unknown until the venture is complete. The amount of experience earned will vary depending on the item found. Oh, so I probably will, to be honest, I'll probably never do the quick exploration one. It doesn't seem worth it. I'll probably just send them out on the sort of 18-hour one rather than the 1-hour one. And then it says, to assign a venture, it says players can assign a venture from the retainers by selecting assign venture from the retainer, blah, blah, blah. So just read through these notes if you want to learn more about it. And I will make a video covering the ventures when we get there. And when it comes to completing ventures, you just have to click the view venture report when it says complete, and that's it. And you can pick up whatever rewards of their venture and see how much experience they got. So that's it. So it says retainers will receive experience points when completing ventures, increasing their level to a maximum of 50. The number of available ventures will increase as your retainer advances the level. The status of retainers dispatched to procure items is saved locally to your computer, PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4, which may result in display of incorrect information when changing systems. Summoning a retainer once via a summoning bell will update their status of their ventures on that system. Okay, that's fair enough. So that's it. We're at the bottom of the patch notes now.
There's one thing I wanted to mention about retainers that they mentioned in the live letters.
Yeah, go for it.
Buy 2 more retainers using the MOG station. It'll cost, it's 200 yen is what they announced. That's roughly $2 US. I think that equates to about $1.10 pounds and about $1.35 in euros. So that's just based off my own head math, but I'm sure they'll actually announce how much it will be, but that will be available as well, so it will be possible to have a retainer in each class if that's what you're interested in.
Yeah, one thing they did say about that as well is the fact that it's going to be a monthly cost and not just a one-off. So if you want to keep the extra retainers, you're going to have to pay that same fee, that 200 yen every month to keep it. And they said the reason why is just because those retainers will be using up server space. So it's almost like you're renting the server space to have your extra retainers. So yeah, but to be honest, I probably won't feel any need to have another retainer. I don't feel there'll be any point. But well, we will see. We'll really see as time goes on in the future. Now, I'm going to quickly go through all the notes I wrote down for the 13th live letter. Put it all into this video as well. Just things that we haven't touched upon, and yeah, and then that'll be it. And it has been a very long video, but then they are adding in so much into patch 2.2 that it was going to happen. So so basically now things they covered in the live letter I've written down is that they showed off the fat chocobo. So they showed what that looked like, and that will be available to all Collector Edition players, regardless of your system. So if you're a Collector Edition registered player of Final Fantasy XIV, you will be getting the Fat Chocobo straight away after 2.2 launches. And let's see. So they also mentioned as well that the Glamour system can be used to update weapons as well as armor. That's something they did specifically say in the live letter. And then they touched on how the venture system works, but we've already covered that. And then it says, let's see, gardening. They spoke about gardening, how that works, but we already covered that. And then now they spoke about next the item level progression for patch 2.2. So they said the item level progression will be as follows. They said the maximum weapon available in patch 2.2 will be item level 115. The maximum level of armor will be 110. And the progression of gear will go from 90 to 95 to 100 to 110 to 115. And then it says you can upgrade relics, zodiac weapons. The upgrade quest for the relics will start in 2.2 but will continue. They will be able to upgrade them even more in patch 2.25 and 2.3. And they said specifically said it will not be easy. And let's see. Okay, just quickly going through my notes. I'm just trying to say stuff which is in the live letter that we haven't mentioned so far. And let's see. So they said Leviathan Extreme can be cleared with an item level 90 group. And it says... Now this is something they hinted at. I don't know if you caught this, Asa, but they said that gear from Leviathan can be used with something to become something. But they didn't say what that something is. It was sort of like a hint.
Zodiac is what that is, and that's something that they really didn't touch on in the live letter either. But it's it's not something expressly stated, but I'm reading between the lines here. Yeah, it's Zodiac, and it's the Zodiac. It's the Zodiac weapon. I believe that I would suspect that the primal weapons are going to be required to get the Zodiac weapon. That's just pure conjecture, but I've planned for that. I have all of my main classes. I have a primal weapon for all of them. So, and I planned for that, and so I suspect that might be the case. We'll find out, but that would be if I were to read between the lines. That's what I read there.
Yeah, and I guess we could suspect that more because of the fact that there is so much emphasis on repeating the extremes, on doing them over and over again. So that might be why. It's like they're really pushing us to keep farming the extremes because we're going to need to anyway for other reasons. And they want to reward you for putting that time into doing the extremes. So I guess that would fall in line with that as well. So I think that's what they like to do, is that they like to add multiple purpose for things and not just one thing, one purpose.
Exactly.
Let's see. Now one thing they touched on as well, which they didn't give any details about yet because they're still working on it, is that they are working on a new materia system, but they have not said what that materia system is. So we're going to have to just wait and see. And someone asked, will the Fantasia bottles be available from the Mog Station? They said, we have no answer yet. They're working on it, but they have other priorities right now. But I think they are going to do it, but they just have not released any information as to when. Now, people also asked about the add-ons. So now they basically said that the PlayStation 4, the UI team is currently working on the PlayStation 4 UI because of the higher resolution. But once that is done, then they will start working on the add-on system. Now, what the add-on system simply is like if you played other games like World of Warcraft and so on, you can code your own add-ons for the game, which used to be things like DPS meters or rotation controllers or whatever. There were so many add-ons for so many different purposes. So this feature of adding add-ons to customize your UI from a programming or development point of view will be made available later, but they're not working on it now. They're still working on the PlayStation 4 UI is what they said. And let's see. What they're doing as well, when it comes to personal housing, they said they're currently calculating server stress, but once this is done, then they will work on it. And that was also mentioned, we sort of touched upon that when we were going through the patch notes, that they need to work on working out what the server can cope with, reduce the stress as much as possible to then make sure to see what sort of capacity they're going to have for personal housing. So now going through as well, just checking through the notes, anything I've not mentioned. So I think I've covered all this. So I've got like 7 pages of notes here, so I'm just like reading through them. Now they asked a whole bunch of questions about patch 2.3 and beyond. So they said they're hoping in patch 2.3 that 24-man queues for Crystal Tower will be made available. So not just queue with 8 people, that you can queue with 24 people if you wish. And that in 2.3 there will be a table mini game. Did you hear that when they said it, Asa?
The table minigame, I didn't catch that part.
I think
that might have been the part I was coming home from work for.
Right. So what they mentioned is that in patch 2.3 there will be a mini game in the game that you can play between players. I guess it's almost like let's say, you remember they had the triple triad in Final Fantasy VIII. You could just randomly challenge people to a card game or whatever. There will be a table mini game. And they didn't really touch on much about what it's about, but they did say there will be that sort of mini game between players that they can level up. It will be, they said it will be a board game. So I do wonder what that's going to be about. And they also spoke about as well in you can mess around with your chocobos can mess around together somehow. Now, I'm speculating if this is like chocobo dueling or something, but they just said it'll be something funny to do while, for example, in a queue for Duty Finder. So it's not going to have much like points or achievements or anything like that. It's just something to mess around with between players while you're waiting for something else. And then they also spoke about, will there be any class-specific mounts? And they announced and showed 2 of them. So there's going to be a bear mount for warriors. So they showed it on screen during the live letter, grizzly bear. And for paladins, to be honest, that looked to me like a griffin. Would you agree? A white griffin?
It's a white lion is what it actually is. And it's those are, they doing that, then they specifically said in the live letter because of the fact that I don't know if any DPS have queued for anything like of consequence lately, but yeah, it's usually at least 10 minutes, if not more. So they're trying to get more tanks to play, and so they're adding the tank mounts, and they're adding an increased bonus for Duty Finder roulette for tanks because of the fact that the tanks are in such short supply for Duty Finder queues.
Yeah. Now, looking through the rest of my notes, they've said that, let's see, the PlayStation 4 Beta Phase 2 will be from the 4th to the 7th of April, and the PlayStation 4 release is 14th of April 2014. And they've also spoken about a Final Fantasy 14 soundtrack Blu-ray, which will be released on the 26th of March, which is 5 days from now. But this is all in Japan, to be honest. And the last things that I've got written down is that one-time password users, something they've actually mentioned on the website a few days ago, one-time password users will have the ability to designate one Aetheryte for free teleports as much as they like, as long as they have a one-time passcode enabled on their account. So if you disable your one-time passcode, you will lose that free teleport. But it's just a way of motivating you, because the point of it is not the teleport. The point of it is to secure your account. If you have a one-time passcode, your account is a lot more secured, because the one-time passcode generates a 6-digit number which changes every 30 seconds, which has to be entered along with your username and password. Otherwise, you can't get into your account. So having that is great, and you can download it for free and register it for free using if you have a smartphone. You can just download it straight onto your smartphone, register it through the Monk Station, and that's it. So no one says you have to pay any money for it, and it's a good way to secure your account. And the last two things they mentioned was the reward for 1 year veteran rewards, which will be a Wind-Up Odin, a Aetheryte ticket. They haven't said how many. I think they said maybe 250. 50. Is it 50?
That's what was announced earlier. That
50.
Probably changed because of the outcry in the forums lately.
Yeah, so the Aetheryte ticket will just basically be a free teleport. And a Barding of Light, which is basically to make your Chocobo look like a Warrior of Light. And a Wind-Up Warrior of Light. So that's 4 rewards for the 1 year veteran reward. And they basically said the next live letter, the 14th, will be late May, and it will be hosted in Nagoya. Now, one thing that they did speculate on is whether the 14th live letter will actually be the last live letter, that they won't do any more after that. But, you know, I don't think they'll stop doing them. I think they have too much fun doing them. I think the community love them too much for them to stop doing them. So, but we will see if the 14th will be the last. I hope it's not the last, but I guess we will see. So, yeah. Now, other things I wanted to quickly mention about patch 2.2 is obviously it's being released on the 27th of March 2014, which is 6 days from now. And as well, there was a lot of things they could have announced, but they decided not to, just so people can see them in game, so that people do not rush straight to these points and then, you know, mess up server economies and whatever else. They want people to discover it on their own. Because, you know, there will always be people who will be in this for the money, who will try and, you know, make as much gil as possible because of whatever reasons. Because that's what happened in the previous patch, is that when they announced certain things too early, then people hoarded the items required for it. For example, the treasure mats. Everyone hoarded the gathering materia and then tried to resell them for like 8 times the price. So they did not announce certain things like that to prevent that from happening. And so other than that, I think that's basically covered all of the notes. It was an extremely long live letter today. It was actually more than 2 hours long. And God knows how long this video is. We've been talking for ages now. How long have we been talking?
About an hour and 35 minutes by my count, but...
Yeah. But it was worth it, though, to cover all of the things.
Oh, yeah. And there's one thing that your fans might appreciate too, and I'm going to send you the link for, is this awesome 8-bit Titan video that they put in the live letter that I think just about everybody would get a kick out of, especially those poor dragoons that get knocked off by landslide.
Yeah, that was actually really, really funny. They put a lot of work into that. They showed it during the live letter, an 8-bit version of the Titan Extreme fight, which also had 8-bit music, which is really cool. So I will link that in the description. And one thing as well they did show, which I'm sure will be a separate link as well, will be the 2014 Spring Collection, which showed a whole bunch of new dances. So there's going to be a whole lot of new dances in... like you'll be able to do on your characters, and they showed a bunch of new gear and stuff like that. And new did they show any new pets or anything? I can't remember.
They did not, that I saw, but I'm assuming that just like your logic for the treasure map thing, that they're not announcing that stuff right away so that people don't hoard it, and as they find it, then people can get it. Because, and I'm assuming that they're doing something similar with Zodiac weapons, because knowing it's Square Enix, it's probably going to have something to do with crafters and having to buy things. So they don't want people to get like greedy and become a Scrooge McDuck and have a money bin full of money. So
and now two things that they didn't really cover at all in either the notes or the live letter was big fishing. So they mentioned it right at the top. You can see it right here, right at the top of the patch notes. They said our master anglers can reel in legendary denizens of the deep, but they haven't covered big fishing at all anywhere. So that's something else that I'm really curious about. Is that what is that going to mean? I know already that you can sit down while fishing, and they did sort of cover that in the previous live letter, but they just have not said what the new fishing challenges are. So that's something else we're going to have to wait for.
Yep. And as I said before, that's not something that's my cup of tea. I'm more into the raiding and battle stuff and like the nuances of gear and things like that. That's stuff that I specialize in. But I've never been much for a crafter in any MMO I've played. But that will be fun for a lot of the people that are.
Absolutely. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you watched the entire video, then thank you very much. I hope you found it useful. We tried to be as detailed as we possibly could with all this new information. And the reason I make these videos and so on is to increase my own understanding of the game. So I really am prepared for everything that's coming out in the future patches, so I can stay on top of the content. Because when you play any MMO seriously, it's important to really be on top of all the new content so that you can just explore it to the max and you can do everything available in the game. Because you are paying a subscription fee for the game, so it is worth getting the most out of it while you're here. So, and also it means as well that because they're always going to keep releasing patches. They've already said patch 2.25, they said patch 2.3, they also talked about patch 2.4. And they've also, that's one thing actually they mentioned briefly, was the concept of the expansion. Now, one thing they said, the concept of the expansion is going to be a 100-year war. Do you remember them mentioning something like that?
Yes, and it's going to be the 1,000-year war is the thing, and it was strongly hinted that Ishgard will be released at that time as well. And if people aren't familiar, that's the city that Coworth sits around, that you can go right up to the entrance to, but can't actually go inside of. But it's where
through the gates of judgment.
Yeah, exactly. And they're saying that it's going to have to. And if you watch a lot of the cutscenes, without spoiling too much, you can see where the 1,000-year war kind of originates from. It has a lot to do with the Allegan stuff. You find a lot about it in Coil, and I'm sure more will be released in the new patch, aside from the main quest. But it's something that will be interesting to see. Square Enix is good at one thing in particular, and that's storytelling, so it'll be fun to see.
absolutely. And they did say as well that the whole lead up to going into Ishgard will be starting from patch 2.2 with the main scenario and so on. So they basically said all of the main scenario going forward will be leading towards Ishgard. They haven't said when Ishgard will be made available yet, but it is, they're hoping as soon as, they're not going to try and drag it out or anything, but they said it has to make sense for the story. So, but they said at least you'll be able to explore the story behind Ishgard before you finally actually get to go into it. Because they are, the people of Ishgard, as far as I've read from before, Ishgard is a dragoon city who fight the big dragons of the game, basically. That's like what they're called. Yeah, so they are the real warriors, but the way they sort of talk about them right now is that because they're such warriors, they're almost, it's like they're so full of themselves that they sort of keep themselves hidden away from the rest of the world for now. That they said, if you visit the Gates of Judgment, you can do it right now in game. Go visit the Gates of Judgment, talk to the NPC guarding it. He will say to you that basically along the lines of, only the worthy may go and see the people of Ishgard. So how that will tie into the story, we just have to wait and see. So, anyway, we could talk about this all day. We are obviously fans of Final Fantasy XIV here, especially if you watch this video all the way through. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed all the information. I hope you enjoyed the live letter. I love watching the live letters. I really love how they announce things and how they do things over there. And a big thank you to Reinhardt as well for doing the fan translation, which I hope to link in the description as well, his translation of the live letter. So, anyway, thank you for watching. And goodbye from me, and goodbye from Asa.
Goodbye, and aloha from Hawaii.
Okay, bye-bye.